Hey, so it's Sunday and it's raining a little bit and I'm at my gym and I'm the only one here. I just finished up. 7 of our fighters were on a card last night, so they got home really late from Angtong, maybe like 4:30 in the morning. And Pinu can never sleep after fights and stuff like that, so he was very nice to come and hold pads for me. As I'm the only one here this afternoon, getting me ready for my fight on Tuesday, so this is really my last training session. And he did not go easy on me, so I had to earn every little bit of glory that I had today in this last session, so that's actually really good for me. My training for this fight has been going pretty well. It's one of these things where I don't usually have a lot of time between fights. I tend to fight in like small bursts with a bunch of fights really close together, and so I don't really see those long spaces between fights as being training for a fight. It's just when I get to train kind of between fights. So I don't really train for specific people or anything like that. But this is kind of exciting because it's the first time I get to fight in Pattaya for over a year, I think, maybe like 15, 16 months, something like that. So it's nice. I get to drive 5 minutes to the stadium instead of 5 hours or 9 hours up to Chiang Mai or wherever it is that I'm going to be fighting. And then, I have fights next month that I will be doing that for. But I feel like for this one in particular, I've been more steady and dedicated in my mental training for it. And I think that a lot of that has to do with having discovered this new podcast by this ex-NFL player. His name is, I hope I'm saying it right, he says it all the time, so I should get it right, but it's Nii Sobo, Niyisobo. And it's called like Sports Motivation Podcast, like not the most exciting title ever. But what's really cool about him is that he actually covers a lot of different points in each episode. So each episode is only like 20 or 30 minutes long, but he really, really goes into things and brings so much into each one that I keep saving all of them to listen to again. But he actually has a bunch of episodes now, and he does return to the same concepts over and over again. So you don't have to re-listen to them. He will come back to it. But the stuff that he comes up with in terms of explaining how something works or how it applies to your life is really, really approachable, which I find is a little bit not the case when you are looking at older examples of mental training, which oftentimes is either specific to a sport like tennis, because that's where it started, was tennis and golf, or they're talking about like how to use it for business, and then you just basically have to take all of the buzzwords they're using for business and apply them to whatever your sport is. But the way that he talks about things, I think maybe because he works with younger athletes for the most part, are really approachable. But recently, so I was running, and I was listening to one of his episodes, and he was talking about the importance of planning. And I think this guy plans way more than I ever would. I'm not a super planning kind of person. I remember my best friend when I was growing up, Nell, she loved to make lists. So she would like wake up an hour before me and like write a list of everything we were going to do that day, which was not something I was way into. So I'm not super a planner, but I do understand what his points are and why you would plan everything out as preparedness. And I find that in the more that I've been training and living this life and doing this process of being a fighter, and kind of things become more and more mental as you go, I think that what I've learned is having been there before, training so that you've experienced all of these different things that might come up really helps you. So that's why I train when I'm sick. That's why I train when I don't feel good. That's why I train through injuries and when I'm exhausted and all of these different things. A lot of people ask me, why don't you take a break? Why don't you rest? Why don't you this? Why don't you that? To like give my body a break, or when I'm kind of breaking down or whatever the thing is. And it's because I want to experience pushing through those things so that if I'm ever in a situation where I'm feeling those things when I have to perform, I've been there before. Like I've done that before. So I have fought with the flu. I fought very sick. I fought with food poisoning. Fought with broken hand, broken foot, broken nose. All of these different things that like by themselves are not these super amazing, like, oh my God, you're so tough, you went through this thing. But collectively, it's that nothing stops me because I have precedence. It's like the Supreme Court. Like you set a precedence, you've done it before, and that's how you're going to be able to push through it again. So when he was talking about preparedness and kind of like planning for everything, he didn't say this, but it gave me the idea through what he was saying, is that instead of thinking of things like, what am I going to do if I'm not feeling well during my fight or something like that, instead of thinking, if this is going to happen, say to yourself, what am I going to do when I don't feel well in my fight? What am I going to do when my opponent is too big? What am I going to do when my opponent is better than me? What am I going to do when I gas out, not if I gas out, that kind of thing. And I've found that in my fights, like when I fight with an injury, it really helps me to not think like, I hope my broken foot doesn't hurt in this fight. It's going to hurt in the fight. So I acknowledge it, I come to peace with it, I'm like, my foot is going to hurt. And then when it happens, I'm not like, oh no, what do I do? So it's kind of the same mental concept as that, changing that one word, which makes a big difference in your mind. What am I going to do if this happens versus what am I going to do when that happens? And then if it doesn't, that's awesome. But if it does, you're prepared for it. So that's kind of something that I've been working on a lot in my training right now, which is not training for this fight, it's training for all fights because I just keep going. So that was just a concept that I've kind of introduced very recently, just that change of that one word, and I think that it makes a really big difference. So I'm going to go home now, and I have a rest day tomorrow before my fight on Tuesday, and I'll be live streaming that, and it's kind of a big fight in terms of like the way it's been promoted, and it's my hometown, and I'm actually going to have my gym with me, which I haven't had in a really long time. So as I'm preparing for that, instead of being like, what am I going to do if my gym is not paying attention to me, I'm just getting ready for what I'm going to do when my gym doesn't pay attention to me, and just treat it like a festival fight, because that's what I do. I go out and I fight in the middle of nowhere with people I don't know and just grab people who want to help me. So that's how I'm going to approach it. As my husband says, steer my own boat. And yeah, so that's good. And tomorrow is my 9-year wedding anniversary with Kevin. So happy anniversary to Kevin and this amazing life that we lead together. I'll talk to you guys later.